My whole neighborhood are the people that were killed, burnt alive. The 2 children burnt alive. 2 children, one 9 and one 7, that hid themselves in the cupboard for 19 hours while their mother was dead in front of their eyes. Can you think about it?
No.
And their daughter of the parents was kidnapped, Abigail. They didn't even know where she is. What happened to her while they were in the cupboard? They killed the father outside.
How old were the children?
The oldest is 8 and 7, or 9. He must have turned 9 already. So 9 and 7 years old. And those are the people that I love. I see them all the time. My grandchild is one of their children's best friend from a couple of years ago when he was there. And I know of a family that they found them hugging on the bed and just shot.
Oh.
I know that they burnt people alive. And they raped people. I know one of the things that's very hard for me to think about it is that people were shot and they couldn't bring anybody to help them. And they called their family and spoke to their family while they were still alive. And they died slowly. Can you think about anything worse than that for a family to think about?
No.
When we say, at least he's not suffering anymore because he's dead, but they died slowly. I know of a daughter that the father tried to get to help her, but he couldn't. And she died.
He knew his daughter was...
He knew that his daughter was wounded. So Keith and I were taken in our pajamas from our house, and people asked me, didn't you think that it could happen? No, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
How could I think about something like that? If I thought about something like that, I wouldn't have lived there.
Yeah.
It was all beyond what happened. On Kibbutz Be'eri, 100 houses were burnt.
Yeah.
50 of those houses, there's nobody to go back to.
Yeah.
There's no houses to build for because the people were killed.
They're dead.
They did. 50 houses.
See, this has to keep, we have to keep, I so appreciate, I know it must be hard, but I so appreciate you sharing that because we have to keep that and let people know this.
So I'm telling you all these things because the same kind of people were with me for 51 days, for 7 weeks and 2 days. And Keith is still with them. And the hostages are with those people that are mean. They don't see you as people. And they don't give you any kind of respect of being people. When I came out, people asked me, did they respect you because you're old? And I said, no, they didn't. They pushed me, they pulled my hair, they shouted at me. They were so brutal that they starved me, and they starved Keith and the girls that were with us while they ate in front of us. Can you believe that?
So they're
that somebody would
starving you
do that. They're starving while they're eating in front of us.
They didn't treat you like a human.
They didn't treat, we didn't, first of all, they didn't give us any human right. At all, nothing. We weren't allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to feel. We weren't allowed to hug. We weren't allowed to cry. We weren't allowed to move. Can you believe, like, lying on a mattress on the floor and sitting on the floor on the mattress for day after day and just being quiet? When I was sad, they used to come in and say, why are you sad? You can't be sad. You have to tell us that you're okay. They even took the thoughts of my head away from me.
Why would they do that?
Because they took control of everything that they could. Everything. One of the days, after 20 hours of not getting anything to eat, anything, and just a little bit of water, one of the girls asked, what about food? Without blinking, he said, it takes a long time to make food. I'll never forget that. And you know what we got? A half a piece of pita from a couple of days ago. I remember him coming
So
in.
one of the captives that you're with
The Hamas terrorist.
says to the terrorists, "What about food?" And
No, one of the girls, the hostages that
Yeah.
was with us,
Right.
asked him after 20 hours, when are we going to get food? He looked at her in the eyes and said, it takes a long time to make food. And we got a half a pita. And that was after 24 hours of not getting anything, while they're eating in front of us. And I remember saying to myself, maybe tomorrow morning you'll get a little bit more. And we got another piece of pita.
pita.
Yes, just a little piece of pita with nothing. With nothing. We used to beg them for water. Beg them for water. I remember one of the days I was starting to feel a bit flaky, even though I was sitting. And I was scared. I was scared that I would dehydrate and they would kill me. Because what would they do with me? And I would die. So I asked Keith to beg them for water. And Keith said, but I've begged them. I've begged them the whole day for water. So I said, Keith, once more, just please, once more. And luckily, after that time, he brought us a little bit of water.
So
But there's many
when
times
you're begging them for water,
he does that like that. What do you want? While us showing him an empty bottle of water, not in words, not in talking. Why? Why did they treat us like that? I don't understand it. I just don't understand how people, humans, could do things like that to people.
I have to tell you, Aviva, that when we saw this on the news on October 7th, I said to our people on our television, I said, these are animals. But when I came back from coming over here and talked to people like you and talked to survivors, I came back and I said, I want to apologize for calling them animals, because an animal wouldn't do that
For sure.
to another animal, much less a human being. And this is pure evil.
It is.
This
You
is
know
pure evil.
that people asked me if I had hope. And they took my hope away. And they took me away so many times that I just wanted to die. I used to tell myself, okay, please just kill me and I'll finish with all of this. Because whenever Keith needed to go to the bathroom, I was scared that something would happen to Keith. If they took Keith to a different room, like to talk to him or to do whatever they did, different things, I was scared
Sure.
that something would happen to Keith.
Sure.
Or I was scared that Keith would die in front of me and I would see him dead. And that we would die slowly. And I just so many times had that need of just, I want to just vanish from this world. Don't want to be here anymore. And Keith is still there. And Keith is there without
9
me.
months.
He's nearly 9 months there. And I know who he's with because I was there with those kinds of people. You like a rug on the floor with no human rights. And one of the times they took him to the shower and they shaved him looking like an Arab. And they shaved him like looking like an Arab and shaved underneath his arms. And when he came out, he told me that they told him to shave at the bottom and he wouldn't. And they just, the four of the terrorists
Why would they do that?
just stood in front of them. And you know what they did? Laughed.
To humiliate him.
Yeah.
And they laughed.
And they laughed.
When, forgive me if this is indelicate, when you had to go to the bathroom, or any of you,
I,
Would
for
they
the
allow
first
you?
weeks, could not go by myself. I was scared. And I was scared that they would touch me or whatever. So I used to ask one of the girls to come with me.
one of the other hostages?
The hostages,
how many of you were together?
Keith and I were together until the day before I left. And we were together at the beginning with the family from Gaza. So it was us with them for 2 days, and then we were separated.
How many in the family?
The family, there were 4 left. I'll tell you about that family, but I'll just continue telling you.
Yeah.
Keith and I were moved 13 times. One of the times it was just Keith and I. Some of the times it was just Keith and I and another girl. Some of the times it was 4 of us, and some of the times it was 5 of us. But we were moved and moved and moved with really people that are monsters. They're not really people.
No.
And when Keith and I arrived to Gaza, on the way they pushed us, and Keith was hurt. They broke his ribs. And they shot us, and they shot Keith's hand. And I am the only one that took care of Keith.
They shot you?
They shot us. They shot us.
And they shot Keith?
And they shot Keith. It hit Keith's hand. And I
Where did they
bandaged
shoot? Where did they?
on his hand. They shot Keith's hand, took like all the skin off his hand. And I had to bandage it.
It wasn't dirt. They just shot him.
They just shot us.
Did they shoot you also?
Yeah, they shot around me. I'm lucky that I didn't get hurt.
But they hit Keith.
But they did get. They like pulled my hair and pushed me. But I was strong enough not to fall. Keith, it happened at the beginning. He didn't think. He came from the back and it just pushed him. And Keith went flying and he broke his ribs. And that's how he got to Gaza in terrible, terrible pain. And I was the only one that took care of Keith. And the family that came into the tunnel with us from Gaza, the mother with 3 children, she told us that her daughter had fainted and they told her to wake her up and she couldn't. And they shot her.
Oh.
And they shot her in front of the mother. So the mother was saying, they shot my daughter. And I said to her, maybe she's going to be okay. Somebody will take care of her, don't worry. And she said, they shot my husband.
Oh.
And they killed him. So I said, maybe your daughter isn't dead. Maybe they'll find a way and the ambulance will come and take her. And she said, no, they shot her face.
They shot her face?
They shot her face in front of her mother.
The little girl?
The little girl. In front of her mother, in front of her brothers and sister. And that's how they arrived to Gaza. After seeing their father and their sister dead in front of them.
Or is that family out, or are they still housed?
The family's out.
They're out?
They're out. We were together for the first 2 days.
How old were the other children?
The girl is 18. She was 17, she's 18. And the boys was 9 and 11.
And they saw
it
sister
happen
and dad
in front of their face. One of the days one of the girls went to the bathroom, and while she came back, I could see on her face that something happened, because I knew already. And when she walked in, I gave her a hug, and the Hamas terrorists started screaming at us, "Why are we hugging?
Why are we hugging?
Why are we hugging?" Because we weren't allowed to show any emotions. We weren't allowed to touch each other. We weren't allowed to hug. We weren't allowed to cry.
What's the purpose of that?
We had to just sit there like nothing. We weren't allowed to talk.
To treat you like animals. Worse than animals.
Worse than animals. Worse than animals.
Dude, forgive me, do you think she was raped?
When she came back, she was very quiet, and the whole room was quiet. We were just like looking at each other in the eyes, and we knew that something bad had happened. And after a couple of hours, she came to me and she said, "He touched me." And I'm not going to share you what she said, because it's difficult for me, very difficult. Yeah. But I was there. And the girls used to talk about their periods all the time. And they were scared all the time. We were scared all the time. We were tortured all the time in many different ways. If it was like at 3 o'clock in the morning, tell us to get dressed like Arabs. And maybe they wanted to move us. But like after 2 hours sitting and just waiting at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they used to say, "Okay, just lie down with the clothes on us, with the thing on our heads. Because we don't have a house for you to take you to. So why did you sit us? Why did you let us sit for 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours? Why?" One of the days, one of the girls was called by a Hamas terrorist out of the room. And then he brought her back and he told her to get dressed. And she started getting dressed, and she turned around and she said that she's scared that he's going to take her. And she just said those 2 words, she's scared that he's going to take her. And he took her hair He took her hair and pushed her, pulling her hair on the floor with a gun in front of her face and telling her one more word, I'm going to kill you. And I had to see that and be part of that.
And the mother was there?
No.
No, okay.
It was one of the hostages that was with us.
But was it one of the family from
No.
your kibbutz?
The
Okay.
family we had separated from
Okay.
that. That was another hostage.
Somebody different.
A girl, a young girl that was with us, that they took her. And they took a blanket, they handcuffed her, and they hit her. They hit her with a stick, with the guns. And I heard all of that. When she
They
came
killed
back,
her?
they threatened to kill her.
Threatened to kill her.
They threatened to kill her, but they hit her in her whole body. Hit her and hit her and hit her. And I heard that. And he was so furious. He was walking around, one of the Hamas terrorists was walking around with the stick and like hitting everything, like hitting the bed and hitting the cupboard and hitting the door to show us, I am the king of the world. I'm going to hit you when I feel like. When she came back after that, they handcuffed her and they put a blanket over her. And I put my fingers in my ears because one of the girls told me, you better do that because you don't want to hear what's happening there. And you don't know what to do with yourself. You just feel, I want to scream, I want to go there and help her. I want to tell them to stop it, but you can't. When she came back, her hands were red, and they were red for days. She was completely and utterly red all over her body with the hair standing, sweating. And I asked her, why didn't you scream? And she said, I didn't want to give them the pleasure. But she was scared that they would hit her even more by screaming. Can you believe something like that? And I had to see that in front of my eyes.
Were you in a home? Were you in the tunnels? Where were you?
We were in, Keith and I were moved 13 times, and we were in tunnels and we were in houses. One of the times they took us to a tunnel. It was just the three of us, Keith, one of the girls, and Keith and I. And when we arrived to the tunnel, we walked and we had to figure out where to put the next step because it was so dark. The terrorist was walking in front of us with a torch on his head, but we couldn't really see where we were going. And we walked and walked. And he said that it's 40 meters underneath the ground. And they took us to a little place inside the tunnel that nobody had been there before because the mattresses were new with nylon on them, with plastic on them. And they said, you stay here. For the first couple of hours, two of them, the Hamas terrorists, stayed with us, and then they just left. And they just left us there. We were left there for days.
They didn't say anything?
No, they just went. After a couple of days, the girl that was with us looked at the terrorist that came down, and said that she does not want to see us dead because we feel like we're going to die. There was no oxygen there. We were like that. We couldn't even talk. We had to lie down and figure out how to take the next breath. And when he came down, she said that she doesn't want to see us dead. So he said, if you feel they're going to die, call me, I'll come. So that evening, she screamed his name, and nobody came. We were just left there because it wasn't nice for them to be there because there was no oxygen there. And
so they weren't there. They just
because they just left us there.
Because there was no air to breathe.
Every once in a while, somebody came down to see that we're alive or whatever, that we didn't run away or whatever, and went back up.
What about food? What about water?
Sometimes they brought us a little bit of food and a little bit of water, but there was shortage of water and there was shortage. We were starving. And then that day that we were taken out in the morning.
So, excuse me, was it pitch black?
It was nearly pitch black. We couldn't even see anything. We had cards that they gave us to play with at the beginning of the time. We couldn't even see the numbers. And we couldn't talk because we were finished. We were just trying to figure out how to breathe. And I remember myself lying there and saying, please, 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 just don't let Keith die before me. I want to be able to see that. And then Keith looked at me and he was like this.
Couldn't
and he
breathe.
said, I feel that I can't breathe. So I said, Keith, just lie down and relax. And I tried to relax him while I was feeling the same, and he could see that I couldn't breathe. So when the Hamas person came down, I looked at him and I said, one more day, I am going to die. And you'll have to carry me.
You told the terrorists?
Yes. So he said, sorry, no house, looking. So I said, I'm going to die. We are going to die here. There was a bathroom with no water. We couldn't even wash our hands. And if they did give us something to eat, it was a dry pita from a couple of days before. And there was no water for us to drink there.
For how
us.
long? How long?
For days.
For days?
For days.
Not hours, days?
No, for days. And I was sure that I'm going to die. And then when he came down, he said, good news, I found a house. So we looked at each other and we said, we're going to live, we're going to have air. And when we were walking up, the girl with me said to me, I can't believe it, how you ran up those stairs, because I was finished. And she said, there must be some God that helped you come up the stairs, because I was finished. I didn't even think that I would make it.
Yeah.
And I remember us saying to each other, we're going to live, we can have air. And when we came up, we just said, air, we're going to live. And you get that feeling that you're going to live. But they didn't tell us that we're going to be moved to a house with the worst monsters in the world. In the world. In the world. They just starved us, laughed at us. We weren't allowed to stand. We weren't allowed to move. They took the mattresses and put the furniture that we won't be able to even see anything or have a little bit of air. They made it pitch dark most of the time, so we couldn't even see each other. We weren't allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to whisper. One of the times, in the middle of the night, there was a huge bomb and a huge explosion from outside. And I luckily was awake, but Keith and the girl were sleeping. And they woke up and they jumped because of that. And she leaned on me to ask Keith if he's okay. And he started screaming that we have to keep quiet. And she was just the most human person in earth.
The terrorists were screaming at
This
you.
terrorist was screaming at us. And then he punished us and he made it even darker. So we were scared.
What do you mean?
not-
Excuse me. What did he mean? He punished you?
He punished us. First of all, he screamed at us, and we weren't allowed to move, and we weren't allowed to go to the bathroom.
Simply for
Just because she said that. Just because she asked Keith if he's okay.
this was a home, somebody's house.
That was somebody's house, a Hamas terrorist house.
Did he have family? Was there family there?
One of the times we were in a house, and in the room next door there was a mother and 3 children. And I saw the children a couple of times when they let them out of the room. And I saw the mother once.
And what did this mother and children think about?
They were
how
hard. I don't know, but when I think about it, that she was there knowing that her husband was behaving like he did, torturing us and hitting us and starving us and shouting at us and making it dark for us and locking the door and not letting us go to the bathroom. One of the times Keith went to the bathroom for more than a second, and he started screaming at him that he needs to get out. They didn't even let us go to the toilet. And one of the days they took us and they put like black material on our eyes. And they
put
black material that we won't be able to see anything where we're going. And they pulled Keith out of the room in a very brutal way. And while they took Keith out of the house, the other terrorist that was with us told us that we're going to go with Keith, but Keith didn't know. And after a couple of minutes, they brought Keith back. He was wet, he was sweating, and he was shaking. And he asked, "Is Aviva?" If I'm there, he called my name. because he couldn't see
his eyes were
anything,
taped.
and he said that he was scared that they would separate us. And Keith is still there. He's still there. He's still there without me. We've been married for 43 years. And he doesn't deserve that. He's
No.
just the sweetest person in earth. He would never even kill a fly. He was vegan for years until the grandchildren came and then they made pizza. And he had to eat a piece of pizza, so that made him become a vegetarian. But he wouldn't even kill a fly. He's such a good person. One of the days with one of the houses, there was one of the Hamas terrorists. This was so mean. And I could not smile to him. When he came into the room, I couldn't. And after a couple of days, he came in and he asked me, why don't I smile when he comes in? Because Keith does smile. And Keith looked at me and he said, he wants you to love him. And I said, Keith, I can't love that kind of person that's so mean to you. Just a day before, Keith opened his mouth and said 2 words. And we were supposed to be quiet. And he threatened him that he's going to handcuff him. And he won't be able to move. And he won't be able to be with us. And I have to love that person. And I said to Keith, no way. But I had to. I had to. And from then,
So you made yourself
I made
smile.
myself smile. I just had to.
I hate to ask this. They would handcuff people as a form of torture, so they couldn't move.
Yeah. One of the days they handcuffed one of the hostages, and it wasn't real handcuffs, it was like plastic. And he bought like a cutter to open it, and when he cut it open, he cut his hand, the poor thing. And I felt so sorry for him. And they brought us something to drink, so I was so intimate, I was so upset, and they brought something for everybody to drink, and we wanted to help. Everything there is just beyond. And the hostages are there beyond. We saw on the news that they're in cages. And we didn't even get mattresses in some of the places. We had to sleep like on like a yoga mattress full of sand. And we weren't able to even have showers to clean our bodies. No toilet paper some of the places to go to the bathroom.
How hard is that to give you toilet paper? How hard is that? When you were moved 13 times, did you hear or see other hostages? Did you hear what's going on? No. Nobody
At the
knew.
beginning, as I said, we were with the family from Gaza, but we were separated, and then other people were with us. Sometimes 4, sometimes 5, and then 3.
How did you find out? How did you find out you were going to get released and Keith was going to stay?
It was a hard day. It was very, very difficult. One of the terrorists came up to me and said that you tomorrow Israel. And I looked at him and I argued with him and I said, I'm not going anywhere without Keith. Anyway. And then I understood who I'm arguing with. And I stood up and I said, I'm going to Keith, because they took him to a different room. And he wouldn't let me. He wouldn't even let me say goodbye to Keith. And I pushed him. And I said, I'm going to Keith. And when I went into the room next to the room that I was, Keith was lying on the floor on a thin mattress, not knowing what's happening, what's going to happen. And I hugged him and I said, you be strong for me and I'll be strong for you, not knowing if I'll ever see Keith again.
So he knew you were leaving. He knew that.
He knew, but he didn't know, because they used to lie about everything,
Sure.
everything.
Sure.
There wasn't anything that was truth. They used to say all the time, no Israel. The whole world has bombed Israel. I used to walk around Tel Aviv and look at the buildings and say, I can't believe it.
They would
can't
tell you
believe
the
it.
whole world has bombed Israel.
The whole world is bombed, that we'll
Wow.
never be able to go back to Israel. That Kfar Aza is theirs. It belongs to Hamas. And I believed them. I believed them. I lost my hope there.
Do you think Keith knows that you got out, or could he not know? Do you think he knows you got out?
The girl that was with us, I said that we were three. The girl that was with us came out a couple of days later and left Keith alone, and she told us that Keith knows that I'm in Israel. But the only minute that I knew that I'm coming back to Israel is when I met the first soldier. Because that day with the Red Cross, the Hamas people tried to just kill us.
To kill you?
They tried to kill us. They used to stop. There were 4 cars on the road of the Red Cross, and I was in one of them. And with the metal stick, they were trying to break the windows and smash them.
We saw that.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
And-
I was there.
And excuse me if I'm saying this insensitive, and these were the innocent civilians
Yeah.
that were so...
Trying to kill us.
So,
It was so scary.
yeah,
I was sure that I would never, ever survive. Never.
you were talking about, and I want people to hear this, because the media portrays and nobody does what Israel does in saving human lives and giving notice we're coming in here, but they portray the civilians in Gaza as these innocent, and we've talked to other people.
I'll tell you about
When they're
that.
beating on your window, these are we watched them, civilians doing things.
Yeah. I want to tell you about that.
Yes.
First of all, I was in an UNRWA house, big building, and I knew that it was UNRWA because there was a van outside written UNRWA.
Wow.
And in front of the building, there were sandals and shoes of children, not grown-ups.
So
Can you believe that?
The
And also-
innocent civilian that the liberal media tries to paint the picture of is pretty much doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Would you say that?
And also in all the places, most of the places that we were in, the rockets from Gaza used to come out from that building.
Wow.
Because the house, the buildings that we were in and the houses that we were in used to shake. I used to look at the ceiling and say, no, just don't let it fall on me. Don't
Wow.
let it fall on Keith. I don't want to die now. The whole house would shake.
Yeah.
And the Hamas people used to say beautiful.
Would what?
They used to say, they used to clap their hands and say beautiful. Why?
Why?
Because and even the Hamas father of the children, children that were 2 years old and 3 years old, when that happened, he looked at his small children and clapped his hand and said beautiful. When those missiles were coming out from the building that we were in. And I was in a big, huge building with 5 other hostages, Keith, one of them, and we were moved. We had to get dressed in seconds and moved out with the whole building that were coming out. There's something that's called a kesh bagag in Israel. Tap on the ceiling, and we were moved. And that's how Israel is looking after those people that were torturing us.
Yeah.
Where do you think, and I know you probably don't know, but where do you think the hostages that are still there are? In the tunnels? Because I know some were released not long ago, and they were in private homes. Do you think that most of them are in tunnels, or?
When we were moved to the tunnel, that time that we nearly died, we were told that all the hostages are going underground.
Underground.
But when we came out after nearly dying there, and that day that he told me that I'm going out to Israel, I asked him to put Keith maybe in a safer place. And he said no, because he's old. So I don't know where Keith is.
Yeah.
I don't know where Keith is. I don't know if he's
There's not
alone.
been any word, any hint where he might be.
There was a video that came out of Keith that they showed about a month, maybe five weeks ago, something like that.
Wow.
And I wasn't able to see the video
Lama?
because I can't see the sadness in Keith's eyes.
Okay.
It was too much for me.
It's not that they wouldn't let you see it. But
No. It was on TV. It was everywhere.
Okay.
The whole country saw it. I didn't see it.
Okay, right.
And I just can't see Keith being so sad and crying. I'm broken up into pieces without that video.
Yeah.
But that was a proof of life, and they need to keep him alive. But we do not know anything about Keith.
Yeah. If there is, we're talking to the world right now. If there's something that you would like to say, I appreciate you being very frank about these monsters, and they are monsters. They are not human. Is there something you would like to say to let the people understand?
I want the people to understand that I went through hell. Keith is still going through hell.
Still.
And he's an innocent person, taken with his pajamas out of his house. But I do want the world to understand that for the next generations and for all the humans in life, in the whole world, the world needs to be a good
Yes.
good place.
Yes.
I want good for the good people in Gaza. I want good for the children there, to have lives, not to have lives they hate. And somebody needs to take care of that. All the leaders of the world have been chosen to make the world better.
Yeah, that's exactly. Let me ask you, Aviva, one kind of a side question, because I know you said it, but why do they hate so much? Why? That's not like, okay, this is a political thing, this is a two-state solution, this is that. The way they treated you, what they did on October 7th, and then with you for 51 days, that's pure evil, that's hatred. Why do you feel, there may not even be an answer to this, that somebody could hate a human that way?
I know of some of the Hamas people that were with us, the terrorists. Their family had been killed or somebody had been injured by Israelis. But it's people that came to the fence and threw rockets and tried to kill the Israelis from the other side. Right. And the Israelis wouldn't let them. And that's how they got injured. And they have got that hate for going through that. But they don't understand that if they wouldn't have done that, it wouldn't have happened. Right. They always have started with us. I come from Gaza. My younger daughter was scared to stay in the house. Until she was 17 years old. I had to walk with her to the bus, bring her back, and she was scared to stay at home because there were missiles all the time from Gaza. There were like 3 missiles a day for years.
For years?
For years.
Yeah.
They used to shoot us for years, and we didn't do anything to them. Didn't do anything to them.
Yeah.
Until it became too much. But I'm against wars.
Sure.
I think that humans, they've got the ability to talk. People need to talk and find a way to enjoy life.
I did an interview with a magazine, I think it was a Jewish magazine, several months ago, out of New York, I think it was. And he asked me, he said, because he asked, share what we saw over here, share what we heard after October 7th. And he said, what's the answer for that kind of hatred? And I said, that's way beyond my pay grade. But I'll tell you this, we need to make it an international law. You don't teach your children to hate. You don't teach your children to put a kippah on a doll and pretend to slit its throat. It has to start, and it has to become a world law that we don't teach each other to hate.
For sure.
And you're the living example of what hate does. We're going to do everything we can to get the word out, and
to bring them home.
God is almighty. We believe God's going to bring Keith home soon, and everybody home soon. Everybody home
We need
soon.
it to happen.
So I want to thank you for it. Must be very difficult, but we've got to keep this out in front of people. And trust me, when we put it out to the evangelical world out there, they get stirred, and they have to hear this story. They have to hear this kind of thing so that we can bring them home. We didn't wear this for you.
Thank
We
you.
wear this every day.
Thank you.
Every single
Thank
day. Since October 7th. And people say, well, what's that about? And we tell them, they
Thank
got to
you.
come home now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
God
so
bless.
much.
God bless.